If you've ever wanted to sew your own costumes, you've probably noticed that patterns for most character designs don't exist. This is especially true when it comes to anime and video game characters. Luckily, this problem is easier to solve than you may think, and that's by learning the skill of pattern drafting. Don't worry, it isn't as scary as it sounds. Drafting your own sewing patterns is one of the most essential skills you can learn if you want to make your own costumes. And all it takes is a bit of practice. Before we jump into the different methods of pattern drafting, let's cover the tools you'll need. Obviously, if you're on a tight budget, you can make do without these, but having a good selection of these tools on hand will make drafting your own patterns so much easier. First up, craft paper or poster board. Obviously, you'll need a medium to trace out your patterns. Large rolls of construction paper or sheets of poster board are perfect for this, especially when trying to sketch out general ideas. Moving on, there are a variety of rulers that assist with the different shapes you'll encounter when drafting patterns. This includes the L-square, which helps with 90-degree angles, the hip curve for hip lines and hems, the variform for armholes, necklines, and side seams, and the French curve for armholes, necklines, and collars. Alternatively, if you're on a budget and don't want to buy all of these separately, you can invest in a combination design tool. An awl is a tool that most people overlook, but it's super helpful. You can use it to easily pierce your pattern to mark the ends of darts, pockets, and more. This goes without saying, but you'll need a measuring tape too. Wait for it. Take your measurements. Crazy, I know. Once you have your pattern drafted, it's important to create a mock-up to test it out. You can use scrap or muslin fabric to do that, or something called sewable tracing paper, which is easy to draw on like craft paper, but it can also be sewn. Chalk is useful for marking fabric and transferring your pattern. It's safer to use than pens since it can be easily washed out of fabric. Lastly, you'll need some of your basic supplies: scissors, pencils, markers, pins, and anything else you typically use when sewing. Alright, now that we have our tools, it's time to start creating patterns. When it comes to pattern drafting, there are dozens of methods to choose from, some more advanced than others. As you level up your skills, you can dive into things like slopers, drafting from scratch, and using patterning design software. But if you're just starting out, here are the most basic drafting techniques that are most commonly used when drafting cosplay patterns, all of which are very beginner friendly. Just a heads up, we won't be going into step-by-step tutorials for these methods because then this video would be 20 minutes long. Also, those steps may change or shift around depending on what kind of garment you're trying to draft. However, I have assembled a bunch of tutorials on these methods, which you can find in the video description. This video is meant to introduce you to these methods and also ease you into the concept of drafting your own patterns. Okay, enough chit-chat, here we go. First up, draping. In this process, you drape muslin or other drafting fabric over your dress form to create the shape of your garment. This method can have a significant learning curve, but if you're a tactile person and work best through experimentation, you'll likely enjoy it. Draping is especially helpful when creating form-fitting designs, even bodysuits and armor. It gives you the ability to really see the garment take shape as you go. Once you've finished pinning and adjusting your draped fabric, you can remove it from the form, lay it out, and transfer it to paper. After that, it's just a matter of creating a mock-up to test the pattern. I used this method to make my Desert Haru shawl as well as Yona's cape. The next method is the most beginner-friendly of the bunch. You can find existing clothing that's similar to what you're trying to make and use that to make your pattern. Either place your garment on your construction paper and trace around it, remembering to add seam allowance, or if it's clothing you don't care about anymore, you can take it apart and trace the individual pieces. This is a great method if you want to copy a garment, or if you need to use that garment as a base for your new pattern. For example, I created my Miss Martian and Hawkeye costumes by drawing their designs out on existing t-shirts, cutting the t-shirts apart, and using those pieces to make my final pattern. The reason this method is so easy for beginners, most of the hard work has already been done since you're working off a garment that already exists. Speaking of using things that already exist, because hey, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel when we can make the wheel work for what we want, you can also use existing patterns to create new ones. Using an existing pattern that's similar to what you need will give you something to start with rather than a blank canvas, which can be hugely helpful for beginner and intermediate cosplayers. Take some time to sit down with the pattern book and your references to find a base pattern that gets as close to your outfit as possible. Then modify it by changing the shape of the neckline or sleeves, adding extra curves or darts or pockets, or even Frankensteining multiple patterns together to create something new. For example, my Snowflake Lily Pad outfit from Idolmaster was made by using existing patterns that I modified to match this design. Of course, when it comes to creating costumes where the clothing really can't be found in real life, I'm looking at you, Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy, you'll have to draft from scratch. But after practicing the methods we've discussed in this video, making your own patterns will become second nature. Remember, always think of the pattern like a puzzle. The final picture may change, but the jigsaw shapes generally stay the same. For more advanced cosplayers, what is your favorite method of pattern drafting? And for the beginners who this video is your first introduction to pattern drafting, what's your first patterning project going to be? Let me know your answers in the comments. And of course, if you have any patterning tips or tricks, feel free to share your own advice. Thank you all so much for watching. If you learned something new, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more cosplay videos. And hey, if you want to support the Cosplay 101 series, check out my Patreon and please consider making a pledge. It'd be super cool of you, plus you get some sweet rewards. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Mango Cyrene, and as always, happy cosplay.